Hi, I'm Beth. Welcome to today's yoga practice. In this practice, we are going to do a short practice that is going to focus on love. That is the 4 qualities of unselfish love described by Buddhism. We're just going to use one block for this practice, and we'll only be doing a few yin type poses as I talk about this wonderful quality or this wonderful concept called the Four Immeasurables. So we'll start in hero's pose. Take your one block. We'll be seated on our heels. Now, if you are comfortable seated on your heels or even between your heels and don't need the block, you can set the block aside. If you'd like a little support, you can use the block either in the lowest position or in the medium position. I'm going to try my block between my heels in the low position. And I think I need a little bit more, so I'll try it in the medium. We're just trying to find a comfortable seat. And I find that in hero's pose, I can start to think about an openness across the space of my heart. So as we do our physical practice, our asana practice, we're going to meditate on this open quality of heart. Now find your seat. You can rest your hands into your lap. If you prefer, you can have your hands over your heart, or one hand over your heart and one hand over your belly, whatever helps you feel grounded and connected. And then allow your eyes to soften, perhaps gaze at a spot in front of you. If it's comfortable, you could also close your eyes. Take a few moments to arrive in your space. Allow your attention to start becoming aware of your breath. Particularly aware of the movement around the heart space, the center of your chest. Even though there'll be movement throughout your torso, you'll feel it into the lower torso as your diaphragm moves up and down. So these 4 qualities of love, known in Buddhism as the Four Immeasurables. I just love that idea, love without measure. They're also known as the Brahma Viharas, or the divine abodes, or sometimes called the divine dwellings. So they're different qualities of unselfish love. And what that means is we're talking about not necessarily a romantic type of love, a type of love that is not dependent on circumstances and not dependent on external factors like the other person. These qualities help you to open your heart to everyone you meet, all who you encounter in life. The idea behind these qualities is that as you cultivate them and allow them to grow, you have this stable center of warmth, of compassion, of courage, of friendliness that you send out to the world. So a few more breaths here, letting my words maybe start to sink in, noticing whatever resonates with you. And the one last important thing that I'll say before we move into different postures and describe each of the 4 measurables in greater detail is that they come from the intent to love. So these qualities are about sending out your intent. They're not about that actual feeling or emotion that we tend to associate with love. So we're all familiar with that romantic quality of love or that caring quality. This is about the intent to experience love in many different forms, or at least in these 4 different forms. So let's take about 3 more breaths here. Let's just do a few simple arm movements to warm up the upper body. We're going to be mainly on the floor and the lower body. Lift your arms out to the side, thumbs up. Now, as you do this, you'll naturally have a width and expansiveness across your chest. continue to breathe into that space. And turn your thumbs a little bit behind you. Your arms may naturally lift a little higher up or not. And as you do that, see if you can draw your arms even a little back behind your shoulders as you breathe in, filling up that space even more. And as you exhale, that you can release that a little bit. If you'd like to round more forward, you can. We'll do 3 of those, reaching open, thumbs back, heart forward. And exhale, a little bit of rounding. Inhale, open. You may look up a little bit. Exhale, round. And then last one, inhale, open. And exhale, round. And you can drop your hands, come back to your seat. So we'll come off the block and we're going to come to lying. I'll kneel to show you the first position of the block, and then we'll all come to lie. You take your block. The block in this first position is going to go right behind your heart space. So right at the area of your rib cage, and you can find the best spot for you as you place it there. I think the easiest way to get there is to put the block about 1/3 away from the top of your mat, wherever that is for you. Our knees are going to be bent in this. So lie back down, and you can see I'm adjusting the block as I get there. So the intent is to lift our heart up with this pose and then let the head, the neck go back. Now this block is pretty high, and it feels a little high for me as I let my head and neck go back. So I'm going to take this blanket, because you can use a blanket to sub for the block in any poses. I'm going to put that up to have my head. You can also have 2 blocks. So I'll readjust one more time. Find the space where the block is lifting my rib cage, and so in effect lifting my heart. And then here I'm going to use a little pillow so that my neck doesn't feel overly strained when I go back. Yet this is a big stretch for the front body, and that's certainly the intent. So if this is too much of a stretch, find a lower block, a smaller book, or a blanket or a towel in the space. If this amount of stretch is okay, stay here, and you can allow your arms to be by the sides and open. You might prefer hands on your hearts. It's a little more awkward here because your arms are raised a bit. Continue to draw your attention to your breath. So the first 2 qualities, the first 2 immeasurables, I usually talk about together because I find they're so closely interrelated. And those are loving kindness, which usually translated to loving kindness in English. In Sanskrit, it's metta. And then compassion. In Sanskrit, the word is karuna. So loving kindness and compassion are generally qualities that we can connect to fairly easily, that most of us recognize. Loving kindness is simply our feelings of warmth, goodwill, wishing well toward others. Now, of course, that comes easily to mind with people we know and care about. And yet you might think about people that you see in the grocery store and other places you go, the times that you felt that your heart opens up and simply wishes well of others. Maybe you smile at a stranger that you pass in a store. That is loving kindness, that feeling of goodwill and wishing well toward others. Now, if at any time, again, this becomes too intense of a stretch, feel free to slide the prop out and lie flat in this position, or go to a smaller prop. So again, a lower block, a blanket that's not so thick, either are fine. And then for compassion, compassion again, hand in hand, ties right into loving kindness. The specific thing that compassion adds is that we send that goodwill, those warm feelings, when we notice that others are suffering. So if you think about someone you care about who might be unhappy, we wish for that unhappiness to end. We feel their suffering. We understand it. We don't want them to be in pain. And yet we can feel that for people we don't know. When we hear about tragedies in our own country or around the world, our heart can open up and wish that the suffering for the people who are suffering will end. So we'll take a few moments here with those two qualities: loving kindness, opening your heart out, and compassion, wishing that suffering would end. As you do this, you might have specific people in mind, people that you know, that's fine. A close relative, a good friend, a partner. You might wish your goodwill out to groups, coworkers, people in your state, in the United States. You might wish that to people anywhere, or people everywhere. You can send out your goodwill to all beings. And in those wishes, always remember to include yourself, knowing that it's important to have a sense of open-heartedness, of kindness, of friendliness toward ourselves, and also compassion for ourselves when we are suffering. It's so much more important to be kind to ourselves when we're experiencing difficulties. It's sometimes easier to be kind to ourselves when things are going well. Being kind to ourselves in the face of difficulty is such a huge quality. So a few more breaths, cultivating or focusing on those first two qualities, loving kindness and compassion. And then slowly roll to your side to come off your prop. And you can lay right back down without the prop. I'm going to come up to seated for a moment. So then we'll talk about the next two qualities one at a time. And these can be a little bit more challenging. Loving kindness and compassion, those, once we start to pay attention to them, can be relatively easy to feel, to cultivate. The next two, which are going to be appreciative or sympathetic joy and equanimity, can be a little bit more challenging. I'm going to move my blanket out of the way. We'll come back down to lying, and this time the block is going to go under our hips. I'll kneel for a moment to show you. If you already know this in a supported bridge, you can go right there. So be right at the tailbone, the bottom little triangular piece at the bottom of the spine. So I like to get into this by lying down on my back, same way, knees bent, and then lifting up pushing into my feet, lifting up my hips, and placing the block. And adjusting and making sure that the block isn't digging into my waistband. It's low enough that it really comfortably supports my hips, and my hips feel pretty effortless here. That's the idea, as we want the body to be set up in a fairly effortless position. And then you can take that same moment to decide what to do with your hands. They can be by your side. If you do have them down by your side, I suggest that hands up position, which encourages more of that open-heartedness. But you can also lay them on your body or wherever else you wish. So this next quality is called mudita. That's the Sanskrit. Mudita is translated as appreciative joy or sympathetic joy. And the concept is simple. It's the joy we feel in response to the happiness of others. So pretty simple, right? So again, think about whether when someone you care about tells you good news that they've received and you feel elated for them, you feel joyful. That is the quality of mudita. Maybe as you think of someone in your life who's experienced something good, already a smile has come to your face. As we cultivate this appreciative joy, we learn to apply that to anyone in our lives. So if you're scrolling through social media, through Instagram, you've heard of FOMO, right? Fear of missing out. Sympathetic joy is totally different from that, almost the opposite. Instead of fear of missing out, we feel happy for those who are experiencing happiness, even strangers, even those we don't know. And one way to think about that is to think about if you're walking through a park and someone else's dog is running and frolicking and having a wonderful time, and that just makes you smile. You don't know this dog, you don't know the person, but it brings you a sense of joy. Or maybe if you're in a restaurant and you see someone holding a baby and the baby just looks happy, is gurgling, is smiling, it brings that sense of joy to your own self. As you start to think about that, you can understand more why these are called unselfish love, unselfish qualities of love. They are all connected. So if as you are opening your heart and thinking about someone else and thinking about a sense of delight in their happiness, perhaps you also feel a sense of compassion for times in their lives that they've suffered, and just a general wish of happiness, warmth, loving kindness. So it's difficult to separate the four. They certainly build on each other. So in these last few breaths, if you're not already smiling, this naturally brings a smile to my face. Maybe see what it feels if you gently allow the corners of your mouth to tilt up, and notice what happens when you add the posture of smiling to the thoughts of sending out your sense of appreciative or sympathetic joy. All right, we'll move into our last pose. Now, if you need a little bit of a break, you can come off the block and just lie here for a moment on the back. I'll do that just for a moment. Just let that stretch rest. As I said in the beginning, these are yin type poses. So in yin, we are experiencing some stretch, and you'll probably feel some stretch as we hold the poses. You don't want to allow the intensity to be just so intense that it's difficult to sustain the pose, or it leads to any kind of pain. You're looking for maybe a 50, max 60% stretch in the areas that feel stretched. All right, last pose. The block is going to be in the same place. We're going to move the position of our legs. So once again, take the block, have it under your tailbone. So same basic place. You might find as we start to reach the legs out, you need to adjust the block slightly. So we're going to move the legs out long. Long is whatever feels comfortably long to you. So mine are probably going to be about here. I don't want to straighten mine all the way. It gives me a little too much of an arch my back. I could move the block a little bit more to my feet and mitigate that somewhat, but that just feels a little too deep to me. So I'm going to go about here. Legs are straightened maybe 75% of the way. Now you have choices again with your arms. You can lay them by your side like we did before. Or if you'd like, you can also stretch out your arms. Just slide my little blanket away, either so that they're bent over your head and resting on the ground, or maybe you reach them long arms, long legs. And you might even find that you start a little bit more bent here, and then as I talk, if your body gets used to this position, you might have a little bit more room to stretch out a little bit further. Whatever you choose, you want to find a place that you can mostly be still for the pose. So I'm going to be here since I'll be talking. This is enough effort for my body as I talk. All right, so this last quality is equanimity, rupaka in Sanskrit. So equanimity is probably one of the biggest challenges many of us experience, because it's the idea of having a strong, steady center of love no matter what is going on externally. So equanimity, sometimes it gets a little bit of a bad rap, right? It's not being uncaring or not thinking that things matter, because we have those first three qualities. We are caring, we are open-hearted. Of course, we think that things matter. But when we cultivate equanimity, we try to realize, to remember that life is constantly changing. That there will be good, bad, ups, downs, positive, negative. And we try to maintain the steadiness of the first three qualities, that steadiness of heart, regardless of what we encounter, regardless of what the outcome is. One way to think about this is to perhaps reflect that there are people in your life who you love, who you care deeply for, who have likely hurt you or at least made a mistake against you, done something wrong that you can see. And yet the part of us that is able to see them as a whole person, to take the good with the bad, to accept or allow it all to be as it is, that is the part of us that's able to tap into equanimity. And there will be times where we're completely thrown off balance by life, where we don't feel that balance center. But our efforts to be there, our efforts to cultivate equanimity, do help us to get back there. So you might feel this sense of your body being stretched in both directions, right? As we reach in one direction and the other, we have a strong, open center. And we are vulnerable. All these poses that we've done today, you might feel a sense of vulnerability around your center, vulnerability around your heart. Absolutely. These qualities of love make us vulnerable, and it's equanimity that helps give us a bit of protection. We can't avoid hurt, but when it's there, we understand that that comes with the territory. That's part of our overall loving stance. Take a few more breaths here. One more intentional breath, gently filling and rising the front of your torso to the sky. And long exhale to release. And then bend your knees so that you can push into your feet, help yourself off your prop. You can lie here on your back for a few moments if you'd like, or I'm going to roll toward my side. And help yourself up. If you'd like, you can come back to where we started, seated with a prop, or maybe you even find that you don't need the prop. As we sit for a few moments, and we'll conclude this class together. So in traditional Buddhist practice, often these qualities of love are expressed with certain intentional phrases. I'll give you a few examples of those phrases that can, again, be applied to yourself. And I deeply encourage you to apply them to yourself and also apply it out to others, apply it to the world. I'm going to use you in the phrases that I I share with you today, knowing that my wish is strongly toward you, the viewer, and you, those in the world. So some examples of phrases can be very direct, in touch with the different qualities. For example, may you be filled with loving kindness. May you have compassion. And they can be more specific to wishes for others. May you have good health. May you experience physical well-being. May you experience mental well-being. May your suffering end. May you have joy. May you have peace of mind. May you be at ease. And then the most basic wish that we can wish for ourselves and for others, and I'll place my hands over my heart. May you be happy. That is our interconnecting wish, our interconnecting intention, that as human beings on this earth, we are all connected by the same desire to be happy. May I be happy, and may you be happy. And may this practice bring you a little bit closer to any of those intentions of peace, goodwill, happiness. Thank you so much for joining me for this practice. If you want to take a look at what else I have to offer, I'll link to some things here. Please do subscribe to my channel and like and tell me about what you thought. It helps me guide my practices or the choices I make for future videos. Have a wonderful rest of your day.